British China in both the East and in the world is an important country that cannot be overlooked, and exchanges with China is becoming one of the most important directions of foreign relations of various countries. The geographical distance between Britain and China is far, but the connection between the two is close. And this closeness does not depend on the subjective will of man. This objective proximity affects the young generations of the two countries, and at the same time, they will determine the future of the directions. When young people from the East and the West look at each other, what do they think? When the cultures of the East and the West meet, what kind of sparks collide? And as the time of the young approaches, what future are they imagining between a connection between the East and the West? Chinese and British culture. What key words represent them? What do they have in common? And why do Chinese people choose to study and work in the UK? Let's find out.
I think of East, I think of brilliant food, I think of deep tradition.
I was thinking bantering maybe, or this British humor, dry humor.
Food, people, and architecture.
I would say, but because I live in London or around London, so I would say inclusive.
The Great Wall of China, definitely silk and their tea ceremonies.
Shakespeare's. I think maybe also classic, because I think like a lot of things is really classic here.
Well structured and I guess I'd say disciplined.
Creativity.
Reserved. That means not very emotional, very polite. Very ordered society, and it's quite open. We've got a lot of immigrants in the country.
I think it's the tradition, the way they put the stuff on, and the way they actually show the world what kind of colours, ways, celebrations they have. It's inspiring.
In the literature part, there have the Romeo and Juliet in Shakespeare's work. And they also have a really famous story like the butterfly lover. It's called Liang Zhu in Chinese. And it's also a tragedy love story. And it talks about something that really same. It has the same concept and same ending. It's something like, yeah. So I think there must be something in common in these two cultures.
Yeah, maybe traditional culture, yes. I do feel that there were some parts in British culture that are very traditional. I find it quite similar to traditional Chinese culture. Humility, or like this sort of cracking jokes, self-deprecating jokes, that people are really, as if people are too shy to brag about their achievements. I found that that's definitely one common trait.
I know that many of my British white Caucasian friends have been learning Chinese because they like the Chinese culture. And I guess because it's safe, and also, I would say that China invests a lot of money indirectly in the UK. Before COVID, it was we had billions from Chinese people, from Chinese students coming and living in the UK, from them just going to universities and spending whatever on. So I would say there's a lot of indirect investment. It's not like China saying, I want to invest in this company, but just people coming here. And the Chinese love the English, really. They really do.
I'm a Londoner, so I'll describe British is very open. It's an open society. It's open to accept other cultures. I could be celebrating Chinese New Year today here, and our Muslim counterpart could be celebrating Eid here. So it's an open society, and I think Chinese culture traditionally we are an open society as well, because we have influence from the religious influence from India, right? Is reflected in Buddhism religion, the culture, and in our language as well. And then we then through us that we export that to Japan and Korea. So it's a transient place. It's where you let water flow. And I think That's the similarity between the traditional Chinese culture and British culture today.
Yeah, definitely tea is a big thing. Honestly, it is a big thing. Now it struck me because I do drink a lot of tea in China, and when I come here, so it doesn't seem too weird to me. But the only weird thing is like they put milk in it. So, but again, like I do open up to different kind of culture, different kind of diet. So I did get used to it quite often, but I still drink tea just as bland.
Like play ping pong and drink tea.
I've never been to China, but I've interacted with Chinese people a lot, yes. I have noticed no difference in my interactions with Chinese people compared to other people or anything I've seen.
I have been to China. I've been to the Guangdong province in Shenzhen. I've also been to Shanghai. It was very, very interesting. I loved the architecture and it was very structured. It was well structured. You could get around places very easily. And the people were really nice and everything there was really good, yeah. I enjoyed my experience there.
So I've actually never been to China, but I do want to go. My best friend happens to be half Chinese, so it does kind of give me an idea of what the culture's like.
I haven't, but obviously we live in London, so we do see loads of Chinese people around, and I don't know, they seem very fun. The food is great because we live in London and there's always like Chinese shops around all over London and all over UK, and it's great.
Well, I think UK is quite famous for its education in China, and since I study in economics and SE ranks really high in economics in the world, so I come to here.
I'm doing a PhD at University of London, so I've been here for quite a long time, since 2015. I got a scholarship opportunity, so I just came here, and also I know the university pretty well before I came here, so I think it's a good choice.
I studied in Singapore and the UK, so I've studied in Asia and the UK. Probably because my parents thought it was best for me to go to university here. I did my pre-university in Singapore, which is close to China.
I studied in the UK. Well, I'm a migrant, and I was given an option. My parent asked me whether or not I want to come study here, and I think for my personal development, it would be better.
I did a master in Queen Mary University, yes, actually. And I think that because my parent or my dad did put me on quite a lot of like English song and English, American, UK culture stuff when I was young. So I always quite attracted, or maybe I quite moved towards to like the English culture and stuff.
I can see lots of different people from different countries on the street, and they even talk in different language. And sometimes on the subway, I was like, "Are they speaking English? What's wrong with my listening?" Or anything.
Our classmates also come from different countries. Yeah.
I think it depends where you live. In London, absolutely. Yeah, you can say that it's an inclusive country. I think so.
I think London is culturally inclusive because I find the younger people are more inclusive in many ways. Yeah, I think we've become more inclusive over time.
Yes, it certainly is. Actually, I'm an immigrant here. So when I came to this country at 12, the government actually provided me a teacher who spoke my language, Cantonese, and he was there I had a teacher for a whole day, and he was helping me catching up with all the subjects that I wasn't, I was behind, like English, catching up with maths, anything I don't understand. And at the end of the day, I had spare time where he was actually asking me, is there any other things that I could help you with, anything you want to learn in Chinese, etc. And that kind of help that is offered in the education system. As well as in NHS, we provide, the NHS provide translation services. And so that is a sign of inclusivity and is welcoming to immigrants. So yeah, I think as an immigrant, I have nothing to complain.
Most of the people I met, they're quite friendly and they do understand I'm from a different culture. So when it comes to things that I wasn't familiar with, they do be quite patient with me, and they do try to include me into their conversation or day-to-day life.
Which of the famous monuments of the UK attracts the most attention of Chinese people? Which part of the UK is their favourite?
Big Ben.
Big Ben.
I think the Tower Bridge.
I really love the National Gallery and the Vienna Museum and also the British Museum.
Regent Park and Epping Forest and Hyde Park and stuff.
There are lots of interesting places to visit, so it's hard to say which one of them are most attractive.
So many different places in the UK are amazing, but for different reasons. So I love London because of the multicultural society. It doesn't matter what your face looks like, what your colour looks like, everybody embraces each other and people do feel as one. The north of the UK, it is so beautiful and so scenic, just really amazing. And the people in general are friendlier, I feel, up north.
I'm just more into nature, so Scotland, Highland, and when it comes to English towns, I would say maybe Rye and the beach in Cambersend, I think.
Scotland's very attractive. Scotland is a beautiful land. Yeah, I like it a lot. The waters taste great compared to the rest of the UK. And yeah, it's a beautiful, calm place full of nature.
Scotland is really amazing. It's just totally different landscape and yeah, the nature.
What is the level of cultural exchange between China and UK? Does this exchange serve to strengthen bilateral relations? And what are the influences of traditional Chinese culture onto the world?
I have friends from many different countries, British, Chinese, Albanian, yeah, lots of Albanian friends actually. And yeah, no, I think I'm very multicultural, which is what London's about really. So my British friends are equally as welcoming and fantastic as my Chinese friends and my Romanian friends and my Albanian friends and my American friends, you know. I think everyone has something to offer.
Recent year I did make a couple like really good friends, not just friends that you met from like a pub or something. Some of them we do hang out together some weekend and some maybe do like barbecue during summer. I did invite some of them through my like birthday party and stuff. Yeah. Yeah, I would say like a decent relationship, I would say, yes.
They are very friendly and we are very peaceful.
Yes, there are cultural differences, but we get along well. It takes some time to, get to know maybe British people. It takes time to develop a friendship or relationship, but once you start to know each other, I think it's just like any other kind of people of relationship in any other parts of the world. It just develops naturally.
Just like Chinese New Year seems to revolve around a lot of people's calendars, so going out for that sometimes. I'm super interested in the history of China. They have a really, really deep history that reaches back thousands and thousands and thousands of years, so I'm really interested in learning more about the actual ancient history of China.
I have heard about the Dragon Boat Festival, and I've heard it's to commemorate the Chinese famous poet, and I found that really interesting. The dance and their clothing, the traditional clothing, it's very, very interesting, and I'd like to learn more about it because I don't know too much.
Lunar New Year would be quite nice.
When it comes to festivals, yeah, it could be Chinese festivals, it could be British festivals, and we always celebrate that together. And also with my other British friends, yes, we do, and we bring foods to share. So yeah.
I celebrate anything that gives me a holiday. Like, who doesn't want a holiday, right? And so the celebrations are great. We celebrate them all.
I think it's an exchange and integration of international culture. Any culture that comes into another country and is able to showcase and represent different parts of the world, I think that's amazing. And I think that's how the world should be all over.
It's definitely an exchange in culture and integration. We now live in an interconnected world, and especially in London where diversity is key and everyone is diverse. It promotes mutual understanding, appreciation and respect.
I think it's important for any place to learn about all cultures so we can just come as one, to be honest. So it's interesting, yeah.
to be honest, I'd love to see more of Chinese culture being brought into Britain, because I think that's just how it should be. I don't think that the two sides should be split. I think there should be an integration, like you said, and an exchange.
I think there are lots of like culture communication between the British and Chinese.
Maybe the football, because it's really there are so many famous football teams in UK, and even some of my friends come to study in UK because of they want to watch the football.
I think the pop culture, like the for example, like I remember Westlife was Backstreet Boys. They were big hits back in the 90s, noughties, and that definitely Chinese people love that, and of course the other like movies and all those like classic British gentleman image, and that's what has an impact on people, not ordinary Chinese people's imagination of England and the UK.
I think there are many more people now today, as a result of British influence maybe, who are thinking, like, I need to spend more time with my family, my kids, and so on, and get to know them better, and so on. So I think as a result of being a bit more laid back and relaxed, that's helped.
In our language, in Cantonese, we have words that are from English words. You know, our cuisine, our dim sum, have influence from Western pastries, for example.
I would say, because I'm quite a big sports fan, I do watch quite a lot of different sports, and obviously in UK with Premier League, and I'm pretty sure everyone in China who watch football follows Premier League, and that is probably one of the most successful like UK business plan ever.
It's got a long history, you know. Before anyone else in the world really came up with many inventions, the Chinese had done a lot of stuff. I think that's quite nice.
I think a lot of ancient Chinese philosophy has made its way into the Western world, especially through like the Silk Road, especially all of the way they make ink and silk as well. So I think if we're talking traditional, like, I think it's huge, the impact that Chinese culture had, and art especially as well. Yeah.
The main point that comes into mind right now is calligraphy and their way of changing that industry and that sector of the world, the art industry, by their unique way of writing and their unique art. And I think that's influenced that industry and made it how it is right now. Yeah.
I think they have a big impact. We can always, go and see and be a part of them. They really interact well with even on social media, everything they do, we always know and we always hear about it. So they have a big, big part in this world, and they always have everyone's idea, and everyone's I don't know, they attract everything around them. So I think it's great, and we should all be a part of it to see it.
So I'd love to travel and study and do stuff in China because of its culture. The people that I've met and have known throughout my life have been lovely.
I would go travel again. I've been there before, and this time I would like to go to the countryside and look and experience the rice fields, and I also want to go see their ancient artworks and their ancient architecture. It intrigues me a lot, so I'd love to go there again, yeah. And I will be going there to study. I want to learn the language. I'm going there to learn the language, actually. And yeah.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think definitely when I'm older, it's something I'm going to look into personally. I think their whole culture is completely different to Western culture, so that really intrigues me.
I would love to. It's actually on my wish list to go to China because, as I said, the colours, the people, they're different, not in a racist way, but they're so different. You always want to, I love to travel, that's another thing as well. You can't even appreciate London enough. Every corner has something else to appreciate. We have Big Ben behind us. It's a lovely place. I think China has lovely places like that as well. Just from Instagram pictures, Pinterest, because we're all on social media now.
Yeah, it would be a nice experience. Because Western versus Eastern is quite different on how they live their daily lives, relationships with one another, how they address one another. It's all quite different. I'd love to experience that. Probably either the scenery, the food. I know that they hold education to a quite high regard, so I assume it would be of quite good quality. If I were to learn Chinese while staying there and experience a daily Chinese life, it would be quite enjoyable.
It is something that would cross my mind, especially because I love going to different countries, learning different cultures. I think the people, like I said before, the architecture, and I think it just looks like a really beautiful place.
Are there stereotypes about Chinese people in the UK? Does British culture represent Western culture?
I'm not sure whether it's like specific to British culture, but I do know like some friends, my foreign friends, they asked me that, do you really eat dog meat? No, not really. Okay, we are dog lover as well. We do not eat our pets. They are our families and friends, that's for sure. So it's like some misunderstanding.
One thing that come to my mind, it's hitting dogs. Yeah, that's one. It does tickle me. It does like make me say ick when I heard that. I'm not gonna lie, it is a thing in China, but it's such a small thing with like a really small area of people.
I don't know Kung Fu. I do not know Kung Fu.
I think they think Chinese people all do Kung Fu and they all talk like this. But actually, again, that's kind of different. So I don't know if this is true, but I think English people do feel Chinese people work very hard. I think also, again, moving out of London, that people think of Chinese people as, oh yeah, you run a takeaway shop, you know, that's another misconception. But I don't know how far that misconception goes today. Again, it's going through generations. So less and less misconceptions, I feel.
Maybe some people will think that Chinese people was rich, but not at all. have rich people and have poor people. Yeah. We are poor people. Yeah.
I think a lot of Chinese culture has now been modernized a little bit, although it is still traditional. I think a lot of British people think it's more traditional than it is to this day.
Every person is unique. They have their own unique personalities, own unique characteristics, and I don't think you should generalize on how Chinese people are just because how they're based on in movies and TVs. I mean, in the movies, they're usually generalized as martial art fanatics, martial art experts, but in the real life, they're just normal people and very friendly to talk to. And everyone has their own experiences, and not everyone is a martial art fanatic. So everyone is different.
Well, I mean, people are varied in all shapes and sizes in all countries. So, I mean, the differences would be major. I mean, I don't think I could name them all, but I just think people are different, every single person. So, yeah.
In Chinese TV or in what we see more of the action hero, like Jackie Chan, like Kung Fu specialist, stuff like that. I don't think that's too accurate all the time, but of course there are some that can do that, you know?
I feel like on the TV they're kind of portrayed more stern and kind of have a cold exterior, whereas in real life they're really welcoming. So yeah, I do think it's a lot different. Just that in real life they're a lot more welcoming to actually bring you into their culture, whereas I would say portrayed on the television it doesn't really go into that a lot. It's kind of just more how they're acting, not what they're trying to offer you. Or
I've never actually met Chinese people, but Jackie Chan, if we're talking about him, like they're great, they're always so much fun. Like they seem like, even on social media, because it seems like the way the technology has got so much better for them as well, and they have so many facilities, it seems like anyway. It just fascinates people, and we want to see the next level. And if you think so clever people like that, we want to see them around us, we want to be part of them, to be honest.
I don't think a normal Chinese person walking the streets would be so similar to someone in a movie like, I don't know, Jackie Chan or something, right? But either way, they both give off hardworking, tendencies. In real life, they're more down to earth. They're very polite. nice people.
Any kind of conversation and interaction, it definitely helps to dispel the misconception or biases. It definitely helps, and it's important to keep the dialogues open.
I think maybe they one day they can travel to China and just see by themselves.
I think one of the main thing about like a racial profile or maybe like stereotyping comes from just a lack of understanding of different culture, and a lot of people have a different view to dark-skinned people. I think it's just because they saw them from the media, from movie films made by like maybe American or something, but it's not. They never really met anyone that's actually from their culture before, so they don't really understand. And so yes, I think expose yourself to different culture definitely helps. Yeah.
I think so, yeah. I think cultural exchange will help bring the two cultures together, and I think that's best.
I know a lot about English literature. So I've actually been in plays as well, Shakespeare plays. Last year I was in something called Midsummer's Night Dream, which is a Shakespeare play. I've been in Merchant of Venice, King Henry V, I think it is. So yes, tons of English literature, plus all the classic novels, Jane Austen and so on.
Jane Austen, all of her works, and Charles Dickens, which I'd read none of, and Shakespeare, of course.
Yeah.
But that's all the literature side.
I've heard about Shakespeare when I was very young age, because we also talked about it because he's famous. He's really, really famous. Yeah, so I also took courses in China about Shakespeare. So we talked about like his tragedies works and also like his comedies work, and it's really. And there's a famous words about him. It's like love is blind.
I read a book on the history of religion and read a bit about Confucianism. I found it really, really interesting when I read about it, because it's kind of debated between a philosophy and a religion, and it's about kind of living a morally correct human life now, which I found really interesting, and something that I guess Western, especially like I guess Christian-dominated countries like Britain, don't really have.
I can't say I am an expert in it, but I do have some knowledge, like the three main pillars of Chinese philosophy: Buddhism, Taoism, and Confucianism. I do indeed find it very interesting. It's something you need to look into to understand, and I've always been a fan of learning new philosophies.
I'm quite familiar with it. I do believe that they have harmony and balance and personal growth, which kind of ties into their culture. I'm interested because I think it all comes together.
Do Brits like Chinese cuisine? Do Chinese people like British cuisine, or do they prefer Chinese cuisine?
Not really.
If I have to be very honest, now I'm much better at with British food. Before, when I first came here, I definitely wasn't very used to that. But now I think I'm pretty open to British food, even though I probably wouldn't say that I eat it very often. But no problem.
I like British food, especially the English breakfast. Yeah, I really love it.
Well, I eat them. I eat roast dinner once in a blue moon. Will I eat that every day? No. But then my food that I cook at home is very fusion. It's like whatever I get from Tesco's, essentially. So
when it comes to UK food, I do like some of them, but most of the time I still eat Chinese food. I do like cooking, and from my own experience, I feel like Chinese food is easier to make, and it's just something that more suitable to my diet and stuff. Yeah,
I do cook Chinese food, and when I cook at home, I guess it would be broadly defined as Chinese food. As a Chinese person, when I go home, yes. That's Chinese food.
I cook it at home every day.
I mean, who doesn't like Chinese cuisine?
Chinese food is the best.
They always compliment on my cooking, so I hope they are being sincere, and I believe so. I believe at least they like the food that I cook. Yeah.
Some of them do, some of them, and at least it's the Chinese food I cook them, they do like it.
It is just such a great mix, and you can have vegan, vegetarian, meat. You just can have anything you like with Chinese food. Soho is in London is one of my favorite places to eat.
I love Chinese food. Yeah, very popular in the UK. I think. Yeah.
Yes, I do love Chinese food, especially Peking duck and dumplings. And you can never go wrong with chow mein. Chinese food is one of, if not the most takeaway food you can get here.
Yes, I do. It's quite popular over here, so I do eat it quite often. If you want a takeaway, you're probably going to get Chinese, so.
It is, I think, all over the world. Like, I've been to Turkey, Spain, Paris, and I do see them all over the place. People love it.
I love Chinese food. Duck is one of my favorites. Of course, I have to say chow mein and things like sweet and sour chicken. It definitely is popular, especially in takeaways. I think a lot of British people get Chinese takeaways, so I think so, yeah.
What is your knowledge about the history of the Silk Road and the existing project, the Belt and Road Initiative?
If I recall correctly, Silk Road may have been some sort of a trade between different countries, and the way for Eastern countries to influence and bring different types of materials and textiles to exchange for other types of goods, some sort of like a trade, like early days of trade between the East and the West.
I think the Silk Road project was a project to connect China with Europe in the Han Dynasty era, to connect them culturally and also to connect them through trading. And I think the new Silk project, which is called the Belt and Road Initiative, connects both the European countries, the Asian countries, and also the African countries, and it causes China to interconnect with these type of countries, and also to enhance their not only economic factor but also their cultural and industrial factors. And I think the new Silk Road project does indeed enhance these factors for the Chinese. The history of the Silk Road project was in the Han Dynasty, and I think it continued around the Roman era, and also I think it did stop around the Ottoman Empire, and I think it was a very important road which did interconnect people, and it did enhance cultures and economic factors. Yeah.
Silk Road is a term of networking on nowadays, where international infrastructure comes together from a part of Asia to the West. Nowadays we know is a term, a route where all the businesses and they come for networking, for work, for anything that is a business or culture or traditions. Belt and Road is one of the initiatives the China government of China has done to integrate 150 countries to have the infrastructure, to help with infrastructure in 2013.
I think the Silk Road, from its perception, was really to do about building a road of trade right across really Southeast Asia, India, Azerbaijan, and countries like it. Join things like this that will actually help us to understand what are the modern day requirements for Chinese people. I used to mentor businesses, and my mentor was every good business answers a problem. So my feeling is if we understood through the Silk Road what are the problems of Chinese people, what haven't they got, what type of things would they like to have, we can potentially supply them as well. It builds up trade and opportunities. but also what it does, it builds up connections and people talking to people.
Is China's cultural spirit related to the reform of opening up and the development of China's international diplomacy?
Yes. So when you open up a country, you welcome other investors into the country. The wealth of the Chinese population improve, right? So they are not struggling, they're not struggling to feed their tummies.
I mean, opening up back in the 70s, I mean, it boosted the chances that not only Chinese people could see the outside world and to have better opportunities to be exposed to Western cultures and vice versa. But also there's part of the Chinese culture that's always ingrained in our society, and so maybe half and half. And when it comes to diplomacy, I don't think it's a big factor.
I do feel that as a result of the diplomacy and as a result of really hundreds of thousands of Chinese people who've come here and been educated in our universities and they've gone back and they've lived in China, I think that has changed and helped change the overall spirit, and just that with them having a better understanding of other countries and the world. This is one of the great things about our universities. They are quite inclusive, and you do meet all sorts of cultures there. What I do feel, having met many Chinese students in my life, because I have a business which houses a lot of Chinese people, is that sometimes they can be a bit insular, so they just go out with Chinese people. And I think a university is a great place to learn about other cultures while you're here.
I think, like any culture, you need to understand tradition to be able to understand a culture today. Some of the oldest surviving cultures still hold practice to their ancient traditions, or they form the beliefs of the modern culture that we see today. So definitely. And I think it's important to cherish those and then also look forward to how we can modernize the world as well.
China is a big country, and for having a understanding of the culture and the history is I feel like it's a huge part in understanding any culture or any country.
I think that applies to every country in the world, that you do need to know at least a bit of traditional culture to get into how people think and why people's behavior, and when it comes to China, it's the same. It definitely helps to know a little bit, at least a bit Chinese traditional culture to understand Chinese people and why Chinese states practices as well.
I think it offers empathy and it kind of eliminates misunderstandings, and I would definitely say just for the long term, it will bring harmony, global harmony.
Chinese is one of the most spoken languages in the world and is very important, and its unique characteristics are very interesting, and I would definitely put it high, very high.
Probably Mandarin is like super high up there, and I think Cantonese would be a little bit lower, but yeah, Mandarin definitely like surely top 5. It's definitely one of the biggest markets, especially for business. So yeah, I'd say Mandarin is really highly spoken. I think just because of the business relations that I've known from people that have talked to me, yeah.
I think it would be, but it's really hard to learn. You have to appreciate it, and lots of people speak it because there's lots of people coming from China as well, and they have a big population. So I think if you want to get a job, it would be great to learn a language like that. You would really appreciate it when you grow up older and you get a job. You would really need it, and I think it would open the doors for you. So why not?
I think it'd be quite high. A lot of people do speak it. It does seem very complicated though, and the alphabet would be it'd take a while to memorize, but overall I think it seems like a very nice language. I mean, it's used in various countries, and I know English is obviously a language that most of the world does know and recognize as like universal, whatever. But Chinese is very high up there. It's probably second or third.
Definitely top 2, just because I believe personally it's really, really good for business, and it's a really big country. So if you do go there, it would be, fortunate to know the language.
Because Chinese or Mandarin is one of the most highly spoken languages in the world, I would put it pretty high. So it would be in my top 5. I think it's in the top 3 of the most spoken languages. So that's why I rank it so high.
Understanding culture does help you to understand a lot of the other prospect of the country. For example, like some diplomatic problem or some economic problem as well. So I would say to understand those questions, the first thing you have to understand is like the history and the culture behind it.
I think, on the state level, it's not down to how the younger generations to determine, but cultural exchanges definitely helps, and with more chance of opening up. And I mean, British young people come to China or Chinese people come to England, and when they return to their home countries, they definitely would help to spread the true stories of the experience, good or bad, and that helps to paint a fuller picture of the society and in each other's home countries, and that would help on that level.
Well done to the younger generation for getting more insights on the different cultures. To the Chinese students coming over here and learning from the British universities, and they're now more into appreciating and respecting where the other cultures coming from. So this builds a great base for a UK Sino kind of integration. In some way, just because of that mutual respect. And I think so some of the traditions of the Chinese cultures, they prefer you to ask them how they are first before you do business with them, and you have that all, whereas probably in London we'll more likely to just get down to business. When you have that understanding, it really makes integration and cooperation much better. So when you can appreciate what they're thinking and then sit on their side of the table, then I think there's a stronger basis for cooperation, and then you can come to some kind of agreement. I just feel the younger generation would probably have it, they've got it tough in what they need to sort out, but I think they'd be more unified than compared to the way the older generation has thought.
We can take the best of all cultures and I think integrate them within each other's society. We can learn from each other, everything from education, philosophy, medicine, the way we treat people. I think it's so important to open up our minds and ideas and our education to Chinese culture, but all cultures as well.
High wind, lie down, Lundon. That means welcome to Britain, welcome to London in Chinese. Their culture is very, very important, so I'm very interested in Chinese culture. The opportunities for the young people to thrive nowadays is very important as well. And so the whole culture of China has evolved. It's changed from a country that was quite a poor country 30, 40, 50 years ago, and it's now transformed itself into a modern day culture where young people can actually thrive, they can come across the world, and a lot of Chinese young students are coming to Britain now to actually learn skills, so that's good for Britain at the same time. I think it's constantly evolving, so it's constantly changing. So I think the reality with China right now is it's seen as a world power. Within the next decade, it'll probably be the largest community in the world as well, second only to sort of India. And so what I want to see is the real Chinese talk about themselves. What they're doing, what are their hopes, what are their dreams. Chinese people just need to understand, as we need to understand them. It's a crossover. So what I think it needs to be happening right now is building bridges between the Chinese populations and Britain. I mean, it's very simple, it's common sense. Do you know that Chinese weekend, 1 million people come to Chinatown to celebrate Chinese New Year? So it just shows you the values of Britain, and it shows that people really do value China, and they love coming to Chinatown to actually celebrate with the Chinese. More and more young people now are actually taking up the opportunity to learn Chinese as well, because it's going to be probably one of the most governing languages in the world for the rest of the century. I think our heritage and culture, like the heritage and culture of China, are embodied in what we can actually do as a form of trade in the future as well, and I think that's really important. China, its heritage, its culture, its values, its commitment to the world, its future, its resolve to really want to be part of the world, to actually create values in the world, constantly thriving now to push their own community forward at the same time in a positive manner, and so that China is seen as a country of distinction. And that's really, the rest of the world have to understand at the same time now how distinctive China is, what are the values of China. Sometimes there are issues that politicians have to deal with, but people make countries, not politicians. And so I think China now has the values to actually become the greatest country in the world to create peace, resolve and resolution.
In this documentary, we answered some questions about exchanges between China and UK. Of course, there are many more questions to ask, but one thing's for certain: young Chinese and British people want to get to know each other and the countries they represent better. Now this recognition, thanks to the cooperation between both countries, is on a good path.